folks, we've talked a lot about the zero-sum game that's involved in racial and cultural resentment, and well, we know who is on the front lines of this fight. Bill O'Reilly, of course, has left the building. He has hit the showers. Wasn't he supposed to show up on Newsmax or something like that?
I don't know. The
like
last I heard of Bill O'Reilly's, he tweeted out that he would have voted for Cortez if he was in that.
Yeah, him and Glenn Beck were showing up.
He was like, at least she cares.
She knows her community.
Yeah, she knows her community.
They're really trying to figure out. They're really trying to figure out some way of like making themselves relevant again. But
wasn't that a slate take? Yeah, whatever.
Tucker Carlson has picked up the ball. He is not the type of guy who's going to go to a soul food restaurant and question why people aren't saying, "Hey,
They didn't say, "Hey, motherfucker, you want chicken?"
Yes,
they didn't say that.
But he is going to show how Democrats really, this is all about electoral politics when it comes to kidnapping babies.
Republicans have always feared that immigration would change the character of American society. Democrats should reward them with their very worst nightmare. Remember that paragraph. It is the blueprint for what we're about to see. They're going to tell you it's about civil rights or some other principle they pretend to care about, but they're lying. It's about seizing power and holding it. That's their only aim. They're deadly serious about it. While you were grilling in the backyard last night, they were plotting, in effect, a coup.
Wait a second. Will you revive? That quote does not say that.
That's deep.
Put it back. Wait a second.
Who was that quote by?
The quote is by some...
David. Oh, yeah.
Is he like a Democratic?
He's a professor, actually. We interviewed him a couple of weeks ago.
We had him on.
We had him on, too.
Oh, Faris. Okay. All right. I forget. All right. So
he's the guy who's organizing the coup, Sam.
Right. Oh, Democrats. How Democrats fight dirty.
The
right.
race
That
coup.
book. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
the race coup.
But here's the thing.
You got to stay a little more focused.
Here's the thing. The quote is, they have feared that immigration would change the character of American society. And he's simply saying, yes, we should change the character of American society. It should become more multiracial and more multicultural and diverse. It's not necessarily about a coup, is it?
It's a coup.
Well, to reactionary white Americans, yes, they consider that a coup. They consider living in a majority-minority country to be akin to a coup.
Yes, and I think and concretely, like DC and Puerto Rican statehood is a coup.
Right. You don't want them. You don't want those folks having an actual vote and representation.
And as a practical matter, they have been using these terms for perhaps decades now when talking about white birth rates in California and Texas.
Yeah, this is Pat Buchanan ran on this in '92.
Yes. Yep. There's a great Pat Buchanan quote in the book if you want me to look it up.
Oh yeah, I would love it.
It's really fun. It's from
What's the Death of the West that came out a couple years ago?
We talk about his '92 campaign a bit as a kind of tracing the conservative mind, and
I will say I went on. Pat Buchanan used to have a show on MSNBC, or he filled in for Scarborough Country at night.
That sounds right. Yeah,
and I would always get booked on that show because I was the only Jew he could find who would agree with him on Israel. And it was always the most disgusting feeling to walk out.
I need that Seder because we're talking about Sharon tonight.
Exactly.
I was watching this '96 documentary about the '96 election a few nights ago, and it had a lot of interesting debate footage from the Republican primary debates that you really wouldn't see anywhere else. And it was Bob Dornan on. So you remember B2 Bob? Yeah.
That guy ran for president?
Yes, he ran for president in '96.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the year that Buchanan won the New Hampshire primary?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. He's on stage with Buchanan, and they're both, just throwing red meat to the crowds. And this is Buchanan, him closest to getting that ring. And Dornan, I guess, is making a play for civility. He's just a sideshow here. He gets like nothing in these contests, but he's still sticking around the debates. And Dornan says, we're Republicans. We should all, we shouldn't attack each other because there had been Steve Forbes comes in with all of these fucking negative ads. Right. And he says, I might have good disagreements with my friend Pat Buchanan about Israel as an ally, but, otherwise we're still Republicans. And I cannot imagine a single Republican saying that today.
Right.
To anyone. That I have a fine disagreement with my friend about whether we should cut off aid to Israel, but it's all reasonable.
That guy hates Israel. I love it. It's great.
Here was the quote. From Pat Buchanan in 1992, campaigning. I think God made all people good, but if we had to take 1 million immigrants in, say Zulus next year, or Englishmen, and put them in Virginia, what group would be easier to assimilate and would cause less problems for the people of Virginia?
This is exactly the point that I have been making.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're talking about bringing 1 million immigrants in to one sort of state, assimilating 1 million Englishmen as opposed to Zulus would probably be easier.
Well, right, because it's a similar economic system and shared culture, obviously.
Exactly.
It's an interesting.
It's just a way to knock Zulus. I think.
I mean, that's really Which it seems like an old. I don't think Zulus is a thing that exists anymore. It's not really.
The Zulus are going to come back in this type of rhetoric because you're going to see this. If South Africa does any land reform, which they absolutely need to do, and you already see this. This idea of South African whites being terrorized because there might be some land redistribution is like a major emerging alt-right talking point, and you will
Is it
see
really?
it.
Is it now?
The an Australian conservative minister suggested that they should offer refuge for white South Africans in Australia. It's coming. Trump will probably mention it in a couple of months.
Buchanan.
I wonder how that will go over here. I would be super surprised if there was a big.
It doesn't. It's not geo. Just think of white people lose their farms to black people. It doesn't matter where it is.
I just feel like that it does not resonate like the idea of no-go zones in Sweden, because that.
Well, that's and also that's real. That's happening. So.
I just feel like the apartheid fight has happened in this country.
We'll see.